Hi guys, welcome back. In today's video, we'll be discussing four companies: Bharat Wire Ropes, Molch Technologies, Focus Lighting, and Ion Exchange. Okay, so first let us start with Bharat Wire Ropes, and we'll do a P2P alongside Usha Martin. I've covered Usha Martin ka result update as well as a con call in a separate video, so I shall not be covering that today here. Okay, so first let us talk about Bharat Wire Ropes. Of course, the model is quite similar to the likes of your Usha Martin, where they sell this heavy ropes in your engineering segment, in mining, in petrochemical industries, etc. Okay. Now the most important thing over here, if you look at the result right off the bat, it was disappointing, right? One of the main reasons for the result to be disappointing was, if you look for the whole year, they have guided for a volume growth to be around 10 to 15%, right? And they've been telling this that they will do similar kind of revenue, around 10 to 15% kind of revenue they'll do. 10 to 15% of volume growth they'll do. But we see for the full year, the volume growth has been 6.9%, and if you look at the on a Q4 basis, you see that the volume has degrown by around 4.5%. Right? Yeah, 4.5% the volume has degrown. So that is why I told that the result is quite disappointing itself, right? Because the management had missed the guidance, right? The second thing is, of course, if the volume growth is not there, it will get translated even in terms of revenue also. Revenue also, if you look, has degrown by around 9.5% on a Q4 basis. Okay? Now, if you see, if you see one of the main reasons for the entire sales to be down and everything is, one is of course because of your Red Sea crisis. You see there has been a lot of delay in shipment, right? And this is translated in terms of the revenue growth and the volume growth coming down, right? But other than that also, if you look, there has been a slight uptake in profitability, you can tell. But the rise in profitability is not due to sale, right? Because ultimately you will need the sales growth to drive the profitability. Here the profitability, you can see the profitability, if you see, PAT has been up 36% on a Q4 basis. It is because of one thing and one thing only. You'll see over the years they've been operating on the low base, commodity prices have come down, and on top of that they have done a lot of these projects that supports green energy, such as they put up a solar energy solar plant in their plants. So as a result, the electricity bill, they're not using a lot of electricity bill, they're using a lot of solar energy. Because of all these reasons, you see that the expenses has come down, and that has given rise in terms of profitability. Okay, and there is no other reason for profitability to rise. Profitability has not increased on the account of increase in sales growth, right? Other than that, if you look over here, there is nothing to be excited about in this company anymore. Even in terms of the revenue guidance, you can see that the guidance has been a bit revised, because earlier, like I told you, they've been guiding for the higher end, like 10 to 15%. Now they're looking at like a max 10% kind of growth, right? We can see that slight like a little bit revision in the guidance towards the lower end. So this is one more thing. Now if I had to compare the same result in terms of Usha Martin, let me tell. Usha Martin ka see, first of all, here if you see, the sales growth for Bharat Wire Ropes has been down by 9.5% on a Q4 basis, whereas for Usha Martin it has been down by 3.6%. So Usha Martin ko Q4 revenue fell a little bit, fell less compared to that of your Bharat Wire. Okay, talking about volume growth also, volume growth on a Q4 basis, Bharat Wire ka volume growth was down by 4.5%, whereas Usha Martin ka is around 5.2%. I have a notes, I'm reading from that, by the way. So 5.2%. Okay, margin wise, if you compare, EBITDA margin is higher here for Bharat Wire. Like I told you, the reason they have done a lot of these solar ka thing and everything, because of that, not because of increase in sales growth. Whereas if you see Usha Martin, it is around 18.6%. We are not able to get the EBITDA per ton to do comparison, because Bharat Wire Ropes doesn't give you your EBITDA per ton kitna hota hai, whereas you get it in Usha Martin. Usha Martin is around 32,299 rupees in that odd, right? So this is you can see right now, if you look both, all this while, if you had seen, Bharat Wire had pretty much higher sales growth, higher volume growth all this while over the quarters. But right now, when things have turned, when you see that all these crises is coming up, such as Red Sea crisis and other crises, you see that Usha Martin is way better and way capable of handling the situation compared to Bharat Wire and Ropes, right? You see, at least in this quarter, that Usha Martin and Wires has done well compared to the likes of Bharat Wire and Ropes. Now the other thing also over here, Usha Martin has a lot more capacity, right? They're adding up a capacity in Jharkhand, they're doing another one in Ranchi, the phase 1 capex. It has been live. It will start commercial production in the coming quarters. We are also going to see the phase 2 of Ranchi slowly coming up, and also there is another one capex going to come in Thailand. So all of these capex that will happen, it will only increase your capacity for Usha Martin. They can start producing more and more value added products, because even if you see with Usha Martin, they see that in the general purpose wire that is there and in the LRPC segment that is there, they're facing a lot of pressure in terms of margins, right? And they're not able to get their volumes up over there because pricing where there is a lot of pressure, right? Because from the likes of competition such as from the US and from South Korea, right? So this is there. But at least for them tomorrow, even if the demand comes, what happens is they have quite a lot of capex and they have quite a lot of capacity. Whereas with Bharat Wire, the main problem is you know how much it could clock every quarter, because Bharat Wire could only clock around 150 to 170 crores every quarter, because that is the only capacity that they had. That is the total amount of order book that they could take in, right? Like every quarter you could see like Usha Martin could come and talk about the order book, whereas Bharat Wire could never do that, because they always told like, see, the capacity that we have can only cater to 150 to 170 crores in order book. That is it. Because if you look at the past, Bharat Wire had fallen in a lot of trouble in 2020, 2021, right? During the entire COVID plan, and after that they had to do a lot of debt restructuring. So even to go for capex right now, they'll have to depend on debt. They'll have to, because they do not have a lot of cash right now, right? Because the entire cash is going into like repayment of debt and debt structuring. So even they do not have a capex plan as of now, at least compared to Usha Martin. So that is that. Overall, Bharat Wire Ropes has been quite a bit disappointing, I would say, relatively compared to Usha Martin. The only thing is with Usha Martin, we'll have to see how it goes about, because over the quarters, of course, Usha Martin's sales growth has not been there. We've hardly seen a single digit kind of sales growth, or we've seen that the sales growth has fallen, right? That is what we've seen. But we'll have to see, at least with this Ranchi ka capex coming up, probably the value added products will increase or not, or how it will get translated to in terms of revenue. That will be something interesting to watch out for. But overall, both of the companies, to tell you, are one, even in terms of valuation wise, it gets quite expensive for a manufacturing B2B space. And the fact that there is no sales growth over here, or if you find a sales growth also, it is in the low single digit kind of sales growth, it makes it quite an uninteresting prospect from both the ends. I feel like this was very lucrative at one point, because it was like a turnaround story, because if you see, both of these companies were heavily debt ridden, and they were getting the debt restructured plan, and they were getting better, not just in that terms, but if you see Usha Martin ka steel ka business ka divestment hua tha, right? And all of this got a lot of value to both of these companies. But right now, since they've already come up from low base to high base, and now the base is higher and the sales growth is falling on top of that, and the demand that you see, there is a lot of pressure also in terms of margin, and the demand in the international markets are also not quite doing well, especially in the US, right? So that, I think, does pose a problem over here, right? So that's it about Bharat Wires and Usha Martins. Now let's talk about another company called Molch Technologies. Okay, now I've covered the business model in detail in my, you can just go to the business analysis playlist, you'll find it over there. I'll just give you a quick glimpse of what this company does. Okay, now you would have seen, if you have to construct a building, right? Let's say you want to construct like a 10-storied building, you're not going to directly call your Mestri and everybody and get it constructed, right? No, first you'll have to design as like how your building will look, and then there will be a civil engineer who will draw the structure in the software such as CATIA and others, and will they will have to do all this measurement and everything, and see what will be the load this structure can handle, and all the other things like iska beam kaise dalega, wo dalega, basically all the civil engineering work, right? This is what they do. Okay, like let's say before the building goes into construction, before the entire thing takes place, the back end work that is there, such as like doing it on the software in your CATIA model ki like ye structure kitna load le pa sakta hai, iska design kaisa hoga, kaise beams dalenge hum log. This is what they do. Okay, this is called their civil engineering division, and this contributes around 75% of the revenue, and the other 25% of the revenue comes from the mechanical engineering division. Now mechanical engineering division ka kaam bhi aisa hi hai, except you work on automobiles. Now again, the same logic, right? Let's say before you go into the production of your automobile, right? Even if it is a single production of your car, if you have to go, first comes your design phase, right? Where you sit and you design the car, and then after that you see how much there are different loads a car can take, right? Like how much load it can take. You'll have to do this flow test also. Okay, like what is that flow test called? I can't believe I don't remember this after doing engineering for like 4 years. It's basically a fluid test that you do it in your fluid dynamics, right? Like kitna like pressure ke wajah se, how does does the airflow happen and everything. So basically these are the different kinds of work that they do, and this mechanical engineering contributes for 25% of their revenue. Okay, and most of their work that is there, the orders that are there, that comes from the US and European market. Of course, the obvious reason is because if the US market or the US companies gives in the US only, the labor cost is quite high, right? So that is why they give the work to India, where the labor cost is cheaper. So that is another reason, right? Now over here, one thing that is common in this company over the last few quarters is every single time since Q1 of this year, they've been guiding for a very high numbers and have been only delivering lower than that, right? And they've also been, and what I don't like about the con call is, they give like, they even forget the guidance that they give, and the management will come and like, we never guided for this, So in the first starting of the year, they had guided for 25 to 30% kind of growth in your civil engineering division, and similarly in your mechanical engineering division also. But unfortunately, we didn't see that happen. We didn't see that getting translated into sales. Okay, this is not just in terms of the 1 quarter or 2 quarters. Over several quarters, this has been happening. Okay, so this time what had happened over the last Q2 or Q3, they told we will be delivering around 10 to 15% kind of top line, and that is what they've done. If you see, revenue has grown by 9.4% on a year-on-year basis. PAT has been down. PAT is down by 4.85% on a year-on-year basis. That is on FY23 versus FY24. One of the reason, if you see, there has been a lot of delay in decision making, whether it is in your mechanical engineering division, civil engineering division also, because they see a lot of slowdown in the US market. Okay, not only that, in mechanical engineering division, there are two phases. One is your automobile engineering, and the other one is your EV, that is your electric vehicle. Both of them are seeing a slowdown in a lot of projects. Whatever the project is supposed to go live, that is not going live. The clients are a bit behind over it. So as a result, of course, this the company has not been doing well. Okay, in fact, actually, they were supposed to hold the con call, but I think the circular came in BSC on May 1st, telling the management is traveling abroad or something, and the con call will be delayed. And so if con call is to be held, they will inform on the BSC website. It is already today is June 14th. It's been more than a month, and there has been no update on the con call. So whatever I'm giving you, the update is just based on the result document and on the investor PPT or the press release. They haven't done the con call yet, right? So that's about Molch Technologies. Another one thing over here to highlight is, if you see, they work their order flow. If you see, it is better in Q2 and Q3, and Q2, Q3 are better quarters than Q4 and Q1, because these people work on the US cycle, right? And US का financial year start होता है Jan से December तक, whereas ours is from April to March, right? So as a result, what happens? The first 3 months is where you get a lot of orders, but invoicing happens in April, May, June, right? Followed by the bulk of the order takes place again in July, August, September, like that. Now you get the point, right? So Q1 में with earlier it was orders are still getting processed, invoice नहीं हो रहा है, but the same thing has been going over and over again कि पहला था वही, right? The starting of the quarter it was invoicing अभी भी हो रहा है and everything, but we've never seen the demand, what they tell, getting translated into in terms of sales. We've never seen the guidance that they've given in terms of being able to achieve it. So overall, again, this is one such company that I keep telling always be watchful for guidance. It doesn't mean if a company gives out guidance you have to go hoo-ha on that, right? What is important is whatever the guidance is given, that has to be achieved. The management has to be able to walk the talk, right? And that is when the market rewards it, right? And as an investor, it is our duty to sit and track and to see if the management is able to do what it has told, right? Otherwise, we lose out on a lot. So that's it about Molch Technologies. The last company, not last company, I have two more companies to go. One is Ion Exchange and the other one is Focus Lighting. I will start with Ion Exchange. Okay, Ion Exchange is one such company where you would have seen that the pace of growth for the company has come down significantly, right? Okay, not significantly, I think it's too harsh of a word, but it has come down, because if you see earlier what happened was, the valuation was low. You got it at a very comfortable PE at low single digit or mid double digits PE, you got it, and we had a high 30% growth engine. Like I think earlier when Ion Exchange first came into light, before it became popular, it was probably 11 to 15 PE, getting at 30% kind of growth. Now we've seen it is ulta. You have a higher valuation engine but low growth, right? Which is you're getting it at northwards of 40 PE, but the growth rate has come down, the pace of growth has come down, which is a very bad combination, right? It would be very great if you have a low valuation, high growth engine, so you will have a PE re-rating possible, but not the other way way around where we have high PE but low growth engine, right? That is not a good news. Over here also, if you see, now if you look at ion exchange, there are three divisions for them. One is your engineering segment, the other one is your chemical segment, and the last one is your consumer segment. Engineering segment contributes 60% to the revenue, chemical segment contributes around 25 to 29% of the revenue, and the rest 10% and the balance is by a consumer segment. So you understand the bulk of the order is coming from the engineering segment. Okay, now engineering का segment का मतलब, if you see, there are these companies, right, such as Reliance, IOCL, आपका यहाँ पे ये लोग जाके ये वाटर ट्रीटमेंट का प्लांट करते हैं, ठीक है. Now let's talk in terms of the numbers, how has the Q4 का result been. If you look at revenue, at least now you can see little bit the revenue has a bit bounced back, right? We are seeing a little bit growth in top line, at least like compared to earlier, because I think there was one few quarters where the growth was even like 15%, like very low. At least now you see that the revenue on a year-on-year basis is around 20%, and Q4 on Q4 अगर आप देखते हो, it is around 18.5%. PAT on the other end has not been great, because if you see, PAT growth is actually PAT is down. PAT is down by 11% on a Q4 on a Q4 basis. But अगर आप FY23 versus FY24 देखते हो, PAT has been very flat. So you can see it's quite remarkable that you don't see an operating leverage over here, which you used to witness. Like I told you earlier, it was a low PE, high growth, and also you observed operating leverage. Now it is ulta, where it is high PE, low growth and no operating leverage. आपका प्रॉफिट ही नहीं है, मतलब प्रॉफिट ग्रोथ ही नहीं है यहाँ पे, राइट? सो अगेन अ बैड कॉम्बिनेशन. नाउ व्हाई हैज दिस tables turned over here is because earlier you see in all the three segments that is there, engineering, chemical और consumer segment पे धमाकेदार ग्रोथ था. बट नाउ दैट यू गो, इस इंजीनियरिंग सेगमेंट पे क्या हुआ है, ग्रोथ थोड़ा कम हो रहा है, राइट? एंड दिस इज अ ह्यूज पार्ट ऑफ योर रेवेन्यू, दैट इज 60%, राइट? क्या हुआ है यहाँ पे, because of the elections, a lot of order, a lot of project that is there which they supposed to get, a lot of that is getting delayed. Decision making यहाँ पे भी delay हो रहा है, right? As a result, a lot of order, although it is there, they're bidding for the order is not confirmed, right? Even if you see right now, उनका order book for the year by as the end of this year was around 3,600 crore. और जो order bid में हो रहा है, which means the order that they are bidding for to get in the next year or in the coming quarters is around 8,000 crore का order book के लिए they are bidding. But out of this, I think even if you tell 15 to 20% का ऑर्डर बुक उनका कन्वर्ट होता है, विच इज यूजुअली द कन्वर्जन रेट. यू शुड एक्सपेक्ट समवेयर बिटवीन 1200 to around 1600 crores, right? That is the kind of order book you can expect from them, right? But unfortunately इसमें भी a lot of delay, like I told you, because of elections. Another main reason is because उनका एक यूपी में कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हो रहा है, और उस यूपी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में because it is a government contract again, there a lot of pressure has come because of elections, project is getting delayed. और एक और चीज़ें इन सब इंजीनियरिंग प्रोजेक्ट्स में क्या होता है, as and when you complete a phase of the project, you get money. You don't get the money in bulk, right? Like let's say there will be different phases of the project, like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. As and when you complete every phase, you get the money. And now this money is stuck over here with the engineering segment, right? So that is one thing. Chemical segment में क्या हुआ, तो although chemical segment was doing well, this segment has hardly grown by it has grown by around 20% on a year-on-year basis. But the problem is यहाँ पे volumes है, पर margins पे थोड़ा दिक्कत हो रहा है. In fact, if you see, यहाँ पे margins has decreased by 1% on a year-on-year basis. Why? Because last time we saw that these chemical companies, especially the Chinese chemical companies that are there, they were they were dumping, and as a result क्या होता है, यहाँ पे थोड़ा price correction होता है, and these people also were forced at times to like lower their prices. But at least now the environment is getting stabilized. So at least here also they're having problems in terms of value. Although volumes are really good, value में थोड़ा दिक्कत हो रहा है, इसलिए you will see that the EBITDA margin is down by 2% over here. The last one is consumer segment. अगर आप देखते हो, consumer segment is a very small छोटू सा segment, right? Hardly 10% contribute करता है. But this has grown by around 30%. Now although this has grown, as the growth rate यहाँ पे बढ़ रहा है इस consumer segment का, यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है, उनका जो losses भी है वो भी बढ़ रहा है. Because last time if you see, Q4 FY23 में इस सेगमेंट का लॉसेस था 7 million rupees, ओके? और इस साल में इस Q4 में इस सेगमेंट का लॉसेस है अराउंड 28.4 million rupees. Okay, so you can see losses has really widened a lot compared relatively. Now one of the reasons इनका मैनेजमेंट का बोलना है कि लाइक ये अभी भी थोड़ा छोटा सा बिजनेस है हमारा, एंड राइट नाउ वी वांट टू फोकस ऑन वॉल्यूम, वी वांट टू फोकस ऑन ग्रोथ, इसलिए बिजनेस का सारा पैसा जो है हम लोग इस ग्रोथ में इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं rather than इन like counting on the profitability, right? And again see, again इन सबका यही है, इस that is one thing they want to tell. That is why although the consumer segment is doing really well, since it is a very small part of the book and there is not really a lot of changes happening in terms of your product mix, it's not like they're really striving for this consumer segment to become a huge part of their revenue and get down the engineering and chemical segment. That is not happening over the years. So that is why I would feel कि like यहाँ पे कितना भी growth करेंगे, it is still a very small thing to be considered, right? So that's that. Overall, if you look even here also the same situation goes. Like guidance wise, if you see, guidance has also been lowered, and I mean they do not want to give the guidance out. Earlier at least they should come and guide at least for a 20% kind of growth. Now they're telling like, look, I'm going to be very cautious, quote unquote, that is a word used by the management, that they are very cautious of giving a number out, because again the environment is uncertain. Because see, इस elections के वजह से जो भी हो रहा है, it will get translated even in terms of Q1, ठीक है? Because Q1 का what are the months, April, May and June, and April में भी elections हो रहा था, right? And April and May and June is when we got the results out. So again Q1 could be quite tough for them. Same things will continue, right? Q2 is monsoon season, so very tough to give out a guidance based on the first two quarters. So that is why they've told like probably we could be doing 10 to 15%. I don't want to give any specific numbers in any of the divisions जो कुछ भी हो जाए, right? So that becomes a bit I would say, of course I can understand from the management's perspective, because if they give a guidance and then they don't achieve it, we as shareholders will go and knock on their heads, right? कि like क्यों नहीं किया? So that is also there. But overall you can tell कि like उनका तीनों divisions में भी problem है, right? Consumer segment में although it is growing, it is a loss making division. Chemical segment में margins में the margins, it's not like there hasn't been a lot of pressure at least compared to last quarter, but having said that अभी भी है, that pressure is there. You don't see that margins improving over here by a huge or a drastic point, or you don't see a visibility over here, right? Like environment में अभी भी like there it's not that really stable, you can tell. And even in engineering division, which is a huge part in revenue also, there also you're seeing a lot of projects, because projects being delayed, there is no there is no outcome as like कब ये situation ठीक हो जाएगा. So overall you can tell कि like all the three things combined, the things look, of course, at least for the coming quarter, it does look tough, and it looks like the situation that has been faced by the company in this quarter will continue even in the next quarter. Then the last company that we have is Focus Lighting and Fixtures. Okay, now again the same thing with Focus Lighting and Fixtures also. What I mean to tell is business model. Just go check the business analysis playlist. I've covered it in detail as to like what Focus does and what is their advantage. Okay, so just by the name itself you can understand कि like Focus Lighting and Fixtures जो है ये light बनाता है, ठीक है? But the difference between the light that they make and the light that is available over here is because अगर आप देखते हो जो भी हम light use करते हैं, जो घर में use करते हैं everything, it is just very cheap Chinese light. Okay, मतलब क्या है? See, there is this huge difference in market की like अगर आपको high end light चाहिए, आपको वो German technology चाहिए, what happens is you have to pay a lot of premium, ठीक है? वरना आपको लाइक सस्ता लाइट चाहिए, आपको प्राइस में मिल जाएगा, बट व्हाट हैपेंस इज यू डोंट गेट द क्वालिटी, लाइक इजीली आग इट कैचेस अ फायर एंड एवरीथिंग. सो देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ प्राइस का डिस्पैरिटी ओवर हियर, राइट? सो व्हाट फोकस केम अप विद द सॉल्यूशन वाज टू गिव यू दैट जर्मन लाइटिंग, दैट जर्मन टेक्नोलॉजी, बट विद अ वेरी with a price point that is way lesser compared to what this European brand said. That is where this Focus Lighting and Fixtures do operate at. और उनका बहुत सारे इनका टेक्नोलॉजी है, मतलब and they have a lot of patent also. Technology, it's I would say it's less of a light company and more of a technology company जहाँ पे ये लोग ज़्यादा R&D करते, innovation करते हैं, and उसके हिसाब से ये सब लाइट का बहुत सारे करते हैं, ठीक है? Now in terms of if you look at the revenue has been great. If you talk in terms of the sales growth, sales has increased by 45% on a year-on-year basis, और PAT जो है PAT has been up by 90% on a year-on-year basis. I wouldn't compare from last quarter to this quarter, because if you see Q3 और Q4 में उनका sales जो year-on-year था, it had been degrown by I think around 6%. So it wasn't right to compare on a QQ. Not just that, Focus is a kind of company you can't compare on a quarter-on-quarter basis. You'll have to look either on a year-on-year or just like in terms of you'll have to like every time review it from last March to this March. Like that is the kind you have to do, because it's a very fairly small company, and जो भी बोलो कि like they're targeting like they've always told कि like you don't because they do not have any orders in hand, right? Like ज़्यादा मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंपनीज अगर आप देखते हो, दे गिव यू दी ऑर्डर बुक. यहाँ पे ऑर्डर बुक का विजिबिलिटी ही नहीं है, राइट? दैट इज वन ऑफ द प्रॉब्लम्स ओवर हियर. ओके, सो दैट इज दैट. नाउ अगर आप इनके बिजनेस मॉडल में देखते हो, देर आर 4 सेगमेंट. ठीक है, पहला होता है रिटेल का सेगमेंट, होम लाइटिंग एंड देन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, और लास्ट होते हैं रेलवेज. ठीक है, नाउ द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग इज ओवर हियर, अगर आप देखते हो गेम चेंजर होता है यहाँ पे रेलवेज, बिकॉज रेलवे इज हार्डली कॉन्ट्रीब्यूटिंग 1%. इनफैक्ट इस बार आउट ऑफ 224 crores इन रेवेन्यू, रेलवे का रेवेन्यू का कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन इन Q4 वॉज हार्डली 0.1 crore. ओके, सो वेरी 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 लेस. ये इनका वन ऑफ द रीजन इज बिकॉज अगर आप रेलवेज में देखते हो, देर आर 2 things. ओके, वन इज अप्रूव्ड वेंडर एंड द अदर वन इज डेवलप्ड वेंडर. इसका डिफरेंस क्या है? मतलब अगर आप अप्रूव्ड वेंडर हो, यू कैन ओनली बिड फॉर 20% ऑफ दी जो भी ऑर्डर है. ठीक है, इफ यू आर अ डेवलप्ड वेंडर, यू कैन बिड फॉर more than 80%. That is another thing. Not just that, if you are an approved vendor, क्या होता है, every time there will be a lot of testing and that to be done with your product. If you are a developed vendor, you are confirmed कि like आप रेलवेज के लिए वर्क कर रहे हो, and every single time whenever you get an order, you directly have to place an order. आपका because already वो सब testing वेस्टिंग जो भी होते हैं वो already कर चुका होता है. And here if you see over the last 1 year, I think the investors have been waiting for when ये approved vendor से developed vendor होता है, right? And every time it is getting delayed. And finally they've told like they will get the confirmation, developed vendor का in August. So we'll have to wait and see कि Q1 में agree update आता है या नहीं, because once they become a developed vendor, they can get a lot of contracts from railways, especially in this Vande Bharat trains and everything, right? So that is one thing. Until now there has been no news with this developed vendor whether they are not or not confirmed or not. ठीक है, that is one thing. इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में उनका कई सारे प्रोजेक्ट है. इनफैक्ट वन ऑफ द प्रोजेक्ट दैट इज गोइंग ऑन इज द बॉम्बे एयरपोर्ट का प्रोजेक्ट. इनफैक्ट दिस बॉम्बे एयरपोर्ट का प्रोजेक्ट अगर आप देखते हो वो 4 फेज में बन रहा है. ठीक है, फेज 1, फेज 2, फेज 3, फेज 4. सो ऑलरेडी देव गॉट द फेज 1 का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट विच इज वर्थ ऑफ 8 crores. नाउ द अदर 3 phases दैट आर देयर, they do not know. So the total Bombay airport ka project is around 35 to 36 crores. But when these 3 phases ka order they will get and when this execution will happen, they have no clue. Okay, so this is one of the main highlight of your infrastructure ka thing. Okay, and one of the main problems again here in infra spaces, although they do have the patent and everything with the technology, the problem here comes is with the order book, because once you get the order, until and unless you finish the entire project, you don't get the money over here. As a result, you will see that the receivables for this company has really shot up this time, right? And fairly understood why. Now the other 2 segments that is there is retail and home lighting, and over the quarters we've seen कि like the company has been telling कि like we have a lot of technology over here कि like हम लोग home lighting में explode करेंगे and everything, right? And in fact अगर आप retail में देखते हो इस साल मतलब इस quarter में उतना कुछ growth नहीं हुआ है, because retail they sell it to a lot of this Reliance का stores and everything, right? And Reliance retail recently bought this company like Future Group and what is it, Central, I think. These are the 2 groups that they bought. Now यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है, lot of these stores are increasing the space and there has been a lot of rejig happening, because of which यहाँ पे थोड़ा slow down हो रहा है, right? And this could be there for 1 or 2 quarters. That is why you see retail में थोड़ा सा कम growth हुआ है relatively over the if you compare for the last few quarters. So overall if you see यहाँ पे focus में, if you see focus lighting and fixtures, there has been no great update as to such compared to what we've seen in the last quarters or anything, right? Right now the most important trigger for this company is one and only कि like यहाँ पे they have to become that railway का developed vendor. That is when I think little bit you can expect more from this company. The other thing, the only new update with the existing thing, there is nothing more कि like अरे ये तो कुछ नया कर रहा है other than that. The other only interesting thing I would tell focus lighting and fixtures का is they're getting into trade business. Now what is this trade business? Trade business का मतलब है, अगर आप you would have seen the likes of Philips, इसका LED lights and all of these, right? So what these people do is they manufacture in bulk and then they have their wholesalers, distributors, and they sell it to the distributors. Distributor goes sells it to the retail, and that is how they make money. So they're getting into this kind of business also. ठीक है? Now why they're doing this is because trade का business जो है इंडिया में, especially in the light, it is a very huge business. In fact यहाँ पे volumes are very very huge. Okay, ट्रेड का वॉल्यूम इज एक्सट्रीमली ह्यूज, बट इट इज अ वेरी लो मार्जिन प्रोडक्ट. लो मार्जिन का प्रोडक्ट क्यों है? क्यों मतलब बिकॉज सी एज अ कंज्यूमर इफ यू एंड मी आर देयर, हमको घंटा फर्क पड़ता है हम कौन सा लाइट यूज करते हैं, राइट? यू वॉन्ट गो टू द मार्केट, लेट्स बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट, 90% ऑफ अस डोंट केयर कि हमारा बल्ब फिलिप्स का है, एलईडी लाइट सिस्का का है या ट्यूबलाइट का है. आई एम प्रीटी श्योर मोस्ट ऑफ अस डोंट इवन नो कि लाइक विच लाइट बल्ब और विच ट्यूबलाइट वी आर यूजिंग. मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम्स वी गेट whichever is there in the market right in front of the eyes, or the other thing we see is कि लाइक अरे 20 रुपए का है या ₹30 के, ठीक है ₹20 को उठा लो, right? So here what happens, price becomes a huge interesting perspective, right? The consumer looks more of a price, than the consumer more or less doesn't care about what and everything. The first thing they look at is price, right? So as a result, most of these companies, that is whether it is Philips, Cisco and the other companies, Havells, they look here over how to decrease the cost, right? Decrease the cost in making the product. As a result, you get low quality product but also at a cheaper price, because it is very price intensive game. In fact, you will see, if you track wire and cable industry, the top three the top three companies that are there, Polycab, RR Cables and Havells, that are there, these people are also making lights, right? Like a small part of their revenue comes from light. And you would have seen over the quite a few quarters, although the volumes that are there, you'll see that has been a lot of margin pressure, because constant revision of price cut has been taken from them to beat the industry peers over there. So you understand how difficult it is. So the only way Focus is going to survive over here is by the product differentiability, right? They want to like be different in terms of product, and that is what they want to do, right? So they have a plan कि like पहले हम तो हमारा एक product बनाएंगे, so that will be the first step to differentiate, because that is the only thing that can differentiate us in terms of market. Because if we go in terms of price, we won't ever be able to compete with that, and our technology cannot compete with that price, because if I get my technology at the price of the other players, we will really lose out on margins, and we'll have to be a loss making company. So what they're going to do first is develop a product and that can differentiate them in the market. Second thing is they will start supplying this product to the brands or the OEMs that is there, such as your Philips and other people, where they can protect their margins, right? So they will be like, देखो मुझे यही margins maintain करना है, if you want to take it or leave it, that's the thing. And third, they will start working on their own brand, right? Because if you start developing your own brand as of now, you'll have to spend a lot in terms of marketing and other things, right, to just make your brand visible, to get that brand value. So it becomes very hard. So that is the first step they don't want to do. They want to work with an OEM, because if you start working with an OEM in a trade business, you're in a span of 2 to 3 years, you can have a triple digit, like around 300 to 500 crores of business you can have, right? Probably not in 1 year, but if you can be consistent over here in a span of 3 to 5 years, and that's huge. So that is what they want to do. That is their primary target, while maintaining the margins that they have, because their target has always been maintaining around 20% or 20 to 20%, 23% ka odd ka margins, okay? And then later, with the money that they get from here by being an OEM, then later they would want to start their own brand, right? That is the entire thing. Now we'll have to wait and watch and see how this entire FY25, how does this entire trade ka business evolve, because they already have their manufacturing facility in Ahmedabad, and they also have a lot more space in case they need space, they need to ramp up the capacity, they also have that. So it is a very interesting prospect to see how the trade business goes by and how the other parts of the business also go by, right? Because Focus, if you see, it is a very, I think you'll have to have a long-term target over here and see, wait and watch till 3 to 4 years and see how this business pans out. It is a very small business, right? And we'll have to, and always, if you see, they've guided for that 500 crores in revenue in FY26-27. And if you look from a year-on-year perspective, right, like they've always been able to do that. I mean, I think this year the total revenue has been around 224 crores. I think last year it was around 100 crores odd or something, if I'm not wrong, right? And before that it was, I think, around 60 crores. Let me just get the exact numbers. Yeah, it could be around that range orderly. So if you look from that perspective, of course, every year they're getting close by. So you can't look at from a quarter-on-quarter perspective over here. So that is the only thing I can tell. But see, ultimately, I can tell you one thing. You could be selling the most, I mean, see, whatever you do, right, you could be selling any product से किसी को भी फर्क नहीं पड़ता है ultimately, right? I'm just talking about in general. आप कोई पेन पेपर भेजो, right, या पुस्तक भेजो, बुक भेजो, या renewable energy का भेजो, या gear भेजो, nobody cares, nobody gives a, I mean, sorry, rats are shit, right? What you sell. Ultimately, what आप कितना भी technology करो, कितना भी light का ये करो, वो करो, ultimately for an investor, अगर आप देखो, it has to get translated into sales. It has to get really translated into numbers. And then until and unless that happens, nobody will care about your company. It's a very harsh reality out there, because see, I think this is the main difference between a businessman and an investor, right? As a businessman, as I can understand it, your business is your baby, right? You'll have to care for it, whether it is in downturn, upturn. You can't leave your business and run away. It's like, if your baby is crying, you can't leave it and run away, right? It's the same thing over here. But as an investor here, I think you have to understand. I think one of the I can tell, like, most of the investors are here to make money, and you over here you have to think like a businessman. You can't go by the rule of the book, like, array receivables has increased, so it is a bad company. So you can't think like that. You will have to think like a businessman. You have to understand why the receivables has increased or the inventory has increased. You have to think from that perspective, but act like an investor. And that means you have to be, like, again, like I tell you, you have to be rude, you have to be shrewd with your money, right? That's the only thing you can do in order to survive in the market. And unfortunately, that is a harsh truth, that is a harsh reality. That is why I keep telling you, like, घंटा फर्क नहीं पड़ता आप क्या बेच रहे हो, क्या करो, अल्टीमेटली वो आप कुछ भी बेचो, अल्टीमेटली इट हैज टू गेट ट्रांसलेटेड इनटू सेल्स और प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी वहाँ पे, राइट? धंधा में सेल्स चाहिए किसी शेयर होल्डर को पैसा बनाने के लिए, या किसी भी बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली ऑल द मनी रन बिहाइंड ग्रोथ। एंड उसके साथ आपको ग्रोथ के साथ अगर आपको ऑपरेटिंग लेवरेज मिल जाए, यू हैव अ गुड अमाउंट ऑफ प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी ओवर इट, यू हिट अ डबल जैकपॉट। एंड ऑन टॉप ऑफ दैट, and with revenue, with high sales growth, high profitability, high ROE engine, low valuation, if you literally hit a jackpot. Oh, it becomes a shareholders like chef's kiss, it becomes, to be very honest, right? So that is the thing. Ultimately, you can use all the fancy words you want to, come to shareholders and be like, हाँ मैं ये कर रहा हूँ, वो कर रहा हूँ, ये patent है, वो patent है, that and XYZ and this and that. But if there is no sales growth, if there is no operating leverage, it becomes it becomes tough for you to, for anybody to make money over there. So that's that for today. I think I just have two more companies probably to go in this manufacturing space. Garware Technical Fibers, Garware High Tech Films, sorry, not Technical Fibers, Garware High Tech Films. And yeah, after that I'll have to see which company or which space I will do next, because I'm planning to take like one entire space and do it. Like, that's what I've done, right? Because the last time I've covered the entire hospital space, now I've covered the entire manufacturing space. So probably next will be wire and cables and real estates I'll start tracking. So that's that for today's video. Wow, it's been quite a long video. I hope you'll watch the entire thing, and see you again tomorrow. Until then, take care. Bye.